Hey guys, what's up? This is Cher talking. Welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a preview for the 4th anniversary festival Hawke banner. We already have all the information on Reddit. As always, thanks Hands43 for doing the amazing job. And this banner brings Hawke. That is the best character of the 8 characters in my opinion. He is a little risky. Well, he does have 190% endurance and will and 99% agility. Well, the thing is, this character has a very good passive. When he is attacked, he will then buff ATK Boost, 15% increase in damage for 2 turns and stacks, and a defense boost that decreases damage taken by 15% to all allies besides self. So that part is strange because he has 0 damage reduction passives on start of fight. But then when other characters are attacked, he then gets to himself an attack boost that will increase his damage potential by, I believe, 30%, and a defense boost medium that decreases damage taken by 20% to self. Okay, so that means that if the enemy uses an AoE attack, both triggers will happen. So he is better for stages where we have AoE attacks. Then when he attacks, he always activates skill number 1. That is a free skill with the power just slash damage that buffs ScherBR by medium effect. Okay, and then on overdrive he changes with skill 3. That is a 10 BP skill with S power that is just slash damage and buffs all status by 30% as command and 20% as a chase. Okay, that part here is interesting because remember Joe has Flame Force skill where she actually has a similar setup when she's hit and when people are hit, but in the end everyone ends up buffing themselves. But the defense boost only lasts for 1 turn. In the case of Hawke, it lasts for 2 turns, meaning that depending on the number of hits, you will already start the next turn with lots of defense boosts, and that makes it much better than Joe in situations where the enemy attacks a lot. Besides that part, he also grants this leader 2 times to all allies that when they are attacked, they can buff 15 points of OG Gouge up to 2 times, an attack boost that will increase their damage potential by, I believe, 20%, up to 2 times as well. It stacks for 2 turns. Okay, so 2 different ways to get attack boosts, and he can actually increase damage output depending on the number of enemy attacks. He gets 2 BP to himself on turn begin, so he's a 5 BP per turn. Now, every 3 turns, he will then recover HP for everyone by around 1.2 thousand at least, and then he will give between 3 to 7 BP to all allies. Okay, so he has a little bit of everything: HP, recovery, BP generation, also has attack and defense boosts, status buffs. That's great. He's just a little risky, but you can actually fix that a little because you can use on start this second skill that is AoE and fast that will give an attack boost and a defense boost, both with 50% volley and a will buff of 50% as well. So this is to give him something on the start of a fight, and now in global it can also recharge every 6 turns. The effects last for 3 turns. It means that on average you're going to have this available half of the time. You have a good start, then 3 turns without, 3 turns with again. In boss fights where the enemies get hit ups, that can be interesting. You don't really need to use this on turn 1, for example. You can use it on turn 6 and then have 3 turns and then use it again on turn 9 because you just recharge it, so that you actually have effects for later in the fight than on the start of the fight. Okay, so it's not that hard to keep him alive, and once he is alive, he's going to have so many effects that can be pretty interesting. He can also inherit a skill, Militant Slash, from a past style that will allow him to be a counter unit, because as you can see, he does not taunt. That's why I said he's better for AoE stages, where the enemies are using a lot of AoE. But if he can counter as well, that can be interesting for the Megalith Dragon at least. But Torp is still a better counter. You can use both together because they don't clash, and he is also the first unit that will allow people to beat Megalith Dragon on hard 5. I totally believe Hawke deserves a 4.5 and the new grading system. The next character will be Gray, and they buffed Gray ScherBR to 140, that's the highest one in the game right now. 105 endurance, 101% will, and 101% agility are just on the average right now. Now, this character has a buff to intrinsic, so he has 30% damage at all times, and then 40% damage reduction when resisting, and 37% chance to evade resisted attacks. Then he gets 20% hit up every turn for a total of 130% damage increase just from this part, but he also gets himself this 50% increase because of slash damage, for a total of 180 at average. And then by turn ends he gets 2 BP for a total of 5. Then he has damage reduction that works all the time, that does not care about resistance, that reduces damage taken by 30%. Then, the start of the fight, he's going to cast Teaching of Swordsman, that for everyone, when they land a slash attack, they will be buffing SGR Dexterity and Intelligence by 5%. 5% is not much, right? And also an attack boost of 15%, increasing damage for 2 turns that can stack. And that can be cast again, so that you're going to use this on turn 1, so that it keeps triggering every new turn. And that will also give him another 50% damage increase. So in the end, he reaches 230%. Besides all the other attack boosts that he can give. He has a guaranteed chase, that is Gravedigger plus a B attack with roll damage. It was made for Spiral 270. And also a 50% chance to chase with another roll attack, that is Yashika for S power. Row this time has cold element as well. So he has a 1 BP skill that is also row, based, deep power, but when you guarantee a chase, it's good damage as well. And there is a 9 BP attack that attacks twice with row and slash, and gives a 15%, maybe 20% because of level, to all allies for each attack. So I missed something about Gray. Instead of giving attack boost, since he's related to slash and wants to be paired up with other slash attackers, he should have been giving a slash damage increase, because that would be a 45% increase instead of just 15%. That will scale much better. That's how Fornews works, for example. He is strong because, well, there are plenty of buffs, but he was also made for Sparta 170, and I don't think he has overlasting effect in the game. I believe 3.5 is good because of overall damage increase, but he's very easy to skip. The next one is Aisha, and Aisha has 116% STR, still has 96% dexterity because she can inherit S's word skills. 90% endurance and 100% will, alongside 106% agility, are all on the averages. She's a debuffer, she needed more than just 100% intelligence and even more agility, I believe, but that's what she gets. Well, this character starts the fight by casting this Earth's Mother, that on turn begins, everyone gets 15% status buffs, and they also get a 20% attack boost to all allies. Then you can cast this skill again by use of the second skill. As you can see here, it will be permanent to all allies. Besides casting that, she will also give defense up to decrease damage taken by 15% for the whole fight, and give 5 EP to all allies. Great. Every time that she attacks, she chases with Flame Hawke. Flame Hawke is the power roll attack that has both slash and hit damage, and tries to debuff the enemy STR and dexterity by 10% because it's rank 1. She also has 37% chance to chase with her skill number 3, that is 9 BP cost. Also roll, slash and hit S power instead of B power, and has a chance to debuff the STR and dexterity of the enemies, but this time by 15% because it's rank 1 as well. By the end of a turn, she gets 25 points of OG Gouge, because when she attacks on OG Gouge, she will also cast this defensive stance that decreases skill damage by 35%, but just for 1 turn. Very specific and not reliable, won't be active all times, even with that extra OG points. When she attacks, she also self-recovers HP and BP, and casts defense down to the enemy. That decreases the enemy's defenses by 10%, lasts for 2 turns and stack, and can also debuff the dexterity to the target by 10%. So when you consider this, she actually debuffs dexterity by much more than you think. She has a guaranteed chase. That means that if she uses her skill 3, she'll be debuffing dexterity by 20% on max level, then the extra 10 for 30, then another 10 because of the chase, and then the extra effect for a total of 50% dexterity debuff guaranteed. And then a chance to get another 25 for a total of 75% dexterity debuff if you get the extra skill number 3. That's pretty cool. Very high values for dexterity. For STR, they are not as high, but how many fights are all based on dexterity? I wonder. Some are, like the fight versus that Arsenal. Many of the attacks, like 90%, are based on dexterity. She's going to be very useful there, especially because Arsenal is weak to heat. And she also has 30% damage reduction at all times, and if she's hit by skill, it decreases by another 40%. Skill number 1 is raw attack as well, and it has a chance to debuff STR only by 15% at max level. So then, because she already has the guaranteed dexterity debuff, this is actually pretty cool to have a little bit of everything. Okay, so some fights the enemies will be using STR and dexterity based attacks only, and you don't need intelligence debuffs, but this is not the best setup, because intelligence is what usually leads you to dying, since intelligence is what the enemy uses to apply ailments on you. Once you are hit with ailments, it's usually the end of the fight. I mean, at least if it's petrify, if it's confused, if it's charm, if it's paralyze. So she's just debuffing damage of the enemy, but not ailment resistances or anything else. But can be used here and there, very specific. Still, there are cards that can debuff all status, but it's just that she is a specialist for dexterity debuff. And you can inherit this Earth Mortar's Blessing to her passive style for even better setup, but that one is more about killing effects. This one is just a debuffer. You can choose whatever you want to use with Aisha. And I don't think she's a very useful style. I will give her a 3.5 as well. Barbara is the last one, and she has 93% endurance alongside 120% intelligence and 103% will. This character here needed even higher agility, but 100% seems to be okay. She gets 1 evasion for 1 turn, as you can see here, so 1 evasion guaranteed. And then she has 50% chance to block any spells and also shadow attacks. If the enemy uses a shadow spell, then she will trigger 2 times, 50% chance to evade. Then she has already a 50% chance to evade 1 hit again. That triggers on the start of the turn. Then by the end of a turn, if she didn't not take any damage, she would then recover HP for all allies by around 1,200. She would then give them 15 points of OG Gauge, 1 extra BP, and then she will cast Morale Up for the next turn. That will be 40% damage increase, and then a Guard Up that decreases damage taken by 35%, and an Attack Boost that will increase their damage by 30, so 70% total fall damage, but also a Defense Boost that decreases damage taken by 25%. But this one lasts for 2 turns. The Guard Up is just for 1 turn, and will buff all status by 20% for all allies. There's a lot of different things here, as you can see, but that all depends on if she is evading or just blocking, so she cannot take damage in a turn. Besides that, she has a 40% damage increase at all times, and 30% damage reduction for damage, and another extra 25% chance to evade. That's all aligned to her skill number 3, that is a 10 BP cost shadow spell that also does pierce damage, that attacks randomly 2 times with 50% chance to cast evasion for each attack. So there's a lot of RNG here. She can get evasions via attacking, she can get 1 extra evasion via this first passive, she already guarantees 1, she has chances to evade all attacks by 25% and block spells and shadow attacks. She still has other skills like the second one, that is recovery, fast, and AoE, that heals and casts evasion to self. Good thing is that you have another guarantee evasion for some turns while she can actually help other characters. And skill number 1 is a free skill that can debuff intelligence by 15% on max level. She doesn't have any chase, and she totally relies on being able to receive 0 damage to trigger her passives. I believe that people will be using her on content where the enemy uses spells all the time, or if they use shadow attacks. And in this content, everything that she offers is kind of good right now, but I do believe that in the future some other units will be able to give as much or close to without having to use any type of gimmick. That's why I don't really recommend this Barbara. I think that she deserves a 3.5 out of 5, but I may be wrong. People say that she's the second best one, and they also use it Cat in the 7 Heroes fight. I just don't really like the idea of this momentary characters that will be useful, but then they get easily power creeped in the near future. Overall, this banner also receives a silver award, mostly because I think that only Hawke is really useful here. Because of his setup, he gives a little bit of everything without having to trigger any gimmick. He just has a little bit of risk on the start of the fight, and if it doesn't work, you just restart. It's just a start. After he keeps going, he will be very useful. And although Gray is strong, I don't think that he's going to stay relevant for too long. His buffs are good, but nothing amazing. Aisha is a debuffer for dexterity status, but outside Remembrance, people won't be using her too much unless the enemy is fully focusing on dexterity attacks. And then Barbara is a specialist that has difficulty to use, but if she manages to trigger her effects, you're going to get a lot. She may also help people that are having difficulty with Spear Remembrance, but for news is even better. He gives more to the party. If you got him, you may already have a bigger step into winning Hard 5 versus Megalith Dragon. Okay, so that's my opinion. What is yours? Say here in the comment section. I want to hear. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I hope to see you soon in the next video or live stream. Goodbye.